radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 12, recorded on Wednesday, November 4th at 2 p.m. Apparently that's needed now with all the things changing every hour. From Milwaukee, and I'm Joe.
I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, well, what do you think we're going to talk about? It's the presidential election.
Ooh.
So that's all we're going to be talking about today. So strap in and get ready.
Strap on and get ready.
Whatever, fine.
Left wing. We're going left wing all the way.
So where do we stand currently, Joe?
Not too bad. Not great, but not too bad. As of right now, they just declared Wisconsin for Joe Biden, thus giving him a really good shot at winning the presidential election if Michigan can get their shit together.
I'll tell you right now, I don't plan on doing a lot of editing, so
That's fine.
sorry to all our listeners.
We're tired today. I am off a 14 to 16 hour workday and 5 hours of sleep. I am exhausted.
And if we don't get this out quickly, it's going to be
no one's going to care.
completely irrelevant
Right.
anyway.
It's not going to matter anymore.
Yeah. So you're going to have to deal with some warts.
Oh.
Yeah, look at that. They just called Wisconsin on the ABC News map, which has been very slow and very cautious to call any race. They still don't have Arizona called or Alaska for some reason.
Well, I think that maybe that's a good place to start, is how slow this race has been going, right? Where people have been wanting, and let me back up a second. We've been telling you guys for weeks now, this is going to be a slow counted race. We have tons of mail-in and absentee ballots that have to be counted. I don't know the totals in other states, unfortunately, but at least in Wisconsin, we had 1.8 million absentee ballots that had to be counted, which was well over half of our 3.5 or 3.6 million total. Okay, not well over half, about half.
We do have record turnout.
We do. That's good.
Obviously, and with COVID, obviously there's a record mail-in ballot turnout as well, and it is going to take time. I mean, certainly Pennsylvania, they're saying, might not be called until the end of the week.
Correct. Well, and that's where we have to be very careful because at least with Wisconsin and Michigan, and I believe Arizona, I'm not so sure about Georgia, don't quote me on that, they were counting throughout the night, as opposed to like Pennsylvania, where they were basically stopping at around midnight to start counting back up again around like business hours today. So that's why we knew Pennsylvania was going to take a long time already. So just be patient and stay focused with this.
Plus, they're still counting ballots that are postmarked by yesterday that are still coming in.
Yep.
Unlike Wisconsin, where the Supreme Court decided that if the post office delays your mail getting into your local election office, then it doesn't count, which is a little ridiculous.
So, Jason, how do you feel about this map that we're looking at right now?
Pretty terrible, really. Not even just the presidential race, and I'm sure we'll get to all the Senate races and House races, but it's really disappointing, a little embarrassing. This election is a referendum on Donald Trump. His character, the job he's been doing, and overall him as a person and a president.
And people still voted.
And I cannot believe.
In higher numbers. People voted in higher numbers than in 2016.
Yeah.
I don't understand. And that's kind of the big thing as well, where the only reason why Joe Biden will win this thing is because Joe Biden had higher turnout than Donald Trump did.
How can this many people continue to be fooled by a con man? It's so irritating.
And while we're at it, can we just get rid of Florida? Can we just cut it off at the coast and just let it float away?
Circumcise Florida away from the United States.
I'm so done with Florida.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't even understand. You have Trump, who, well, actually, I do understand. We can talk about that in a little bit too. But where you have Trump, who's acting like a total racist bigot, I was going to say something much worse, the entire time. You have Ron DeSantis, who is killing them with COVID right now. Republicans are destroying Florida as we speak, yet they turn out for him.
More of the same, please.
And the reason why this is happening is because, it's just straight up propaganda. That's all this was back in Florida. The idea of they're coming for your suburbs, racism. The idea that Joe Biden somehow the next Fidel Castro. Propaganda works.
Apparently. I don't know how to explain it. I'm really curious what's going to happen after this is all over and we start seeing some of the demographic splits and things like that. Because I don't understand. I don't know where Trump's support is coming from yet. Apparently, we don't care about white supremacy as long as we get religious fanatics on the Supreme Court, I guess.
That's basically it. But even look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin, like I said before, was just called for Biden. He won by 20,000 votes. That's it.
That's all because of us, I'm sure. If we didn't have this podcast, we're the firewall standing
I'm sure
between.
it is.
Yes.
Right.
You're welcome, America.
We saved America. You could say this pod saved America.
Watch out, I think that's copyright.
Damn it. But seriously, though, I don't know where these people are coming from, and I don't understand why after all of this has happened, they're still voting for him in mass numbers. And I think that's something we should all keep in the back of our minds is while we wanted to believe it in all our hearts, 2016 was not a fluke. Trump and Trumpism is here to stay. The idea of radical right-wing conservatism is here to stay, and we have to constantly fight it off for at least the next couple of decades.
Who's going to be the next circus leader to take Trump's place?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, if Biden was going to cream Donald Trump, that may have been some kind of message to the Republicans that, okay, we can't go so crazy off our rockers anymore. We need to bring it back to the moderate center. This clearly shows that they don't have to do that.
Tucker Carlson, 2024.
I mean, basically, always we have someone like Tom Tiffany coming in. You might as well have, who's the football coach that just won in Alabama?
Tupperville?
Yeah, Tony Tuberville. I mean, you might as well just have him go because who cares?
So it looks like Biden is going to narrowly win. Looks like Michigan is going to go for Biden, Arizona, Nevada, more than likely. Possibly Georgia, because it looks like most of the uncounted ballots are from Atlanta.
I would say if there's any
Fulton County.
Right, I would say if there's any nice surprise coming out of this whole thing is that Georgia's been farther in play than I expected it to. So thank you, Georgia. Unless they're teasing me, then I hate you. But the fact that I think we can now consider Georgia even possibly a swing state makes me so happy. The problem is, on vice versa, Wisconsin and Michigan are also swing states.
Yeah, the blue wall is not really much of a wall these days.
No, unfortunately not. Now, like Jason said, though, while it looks like we're going to win Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Trump's already spreading conspiracy theories that Democrats are trying to steal the election.
Are stealing the election. Right after Joe Biden spoke last night, Trump immediately started tweeting about how Democrats are stealing the election in all caps. During his speech, oh my God, Jason, did you see his speech? I only watched some brief highlights.
Okay, I saw it live because I'm a crazy person who couldn't sleep at like 2 a.m. And it was as insane as I expected it to be. And I don't know if you saw this, but so I was watching the CBS coverage of it, and they had Reince Priebus as the Trump guy or as the Republican guy. And right before the speech, the correspondents were asking Reince, so what do you think Trump is going to actually say? Like, we already saw that he tweeted that Democrats are trying to steal the election. Do you really think he's going to go all out crazy with this speech here? And Reince looks dead right into the camera and says, no, you guys are worrying way too much. Don't be hyperbolic. Don't be, grandizing this whole thing. He's going to have a very mundane speech. Just watch. And then Trump goes on to rant for like 10, 15 minutes about how all these states should have already been called for him, but they weren't because of this weird conspiracy. It was so crazy.
I don't understand how everyone thinks that they're finding votes instead of just counting the votes that have come in.
It's so dumb.
It's such a weird spin that every person that's even mildly conservative is repeating. Like, they're believing this wholeheartedly. Oh, they're just finding those votes. They're not finding them. They're counting them. That's how elections work.
Higher population areas take longer to count. No, duh. And the fact, like, this has always been how it's actually been conducted.
Races just aren't normally this close, so they're able to call it earlier.
Well, and then did you see how they're already trying to do this weird conspiracy about how Wisconsin has more people voting than they do have registered voters?
I have seen that.
Oh my God, why?
People online.
So for those who aren't seeing it, because Wisconsin is so close, there have been conspiracies already going around, and there will probably be a recount. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, they've already said, because it's going to be within 1%.
Yeah, Trump's definitely going to ask for a recount, and that's okay. Like, that's not the worst thing in the world. I'm sure, if it was 1% the other way, Biden would have asked for a recount too. Okay, fine. But people are now saying that Wisconsin has more counted votes than there were registered voters in the state, which is demonstrably false. I think there was like a very viral tweet that was going around saying that there were 3.1 million voters with like just under 3.6 million votes. And it's just wrong. We have over 3.6 million people registered to vote on our own elections website that they posted days ago before this election.
And we have same day registration.
Right. So where is this conspiracy nonsense coming from? Do they really hate Democrats that much that they think they'll just try to control every single aspect out there? Like what the hell is this?
They've been programmed that the only way Trump was going to lose is if it was rigged. We all knew that this scenario that we're watching was a possibility, that it would be close, that the early vote was going to be more for Trump, and as the night progressed, they'd be counting the mail-in ballots, which were going to be predominantly for Biden, because Trump told everybody that mail-in voting was fraud, which is setting up this narrative for Trump to push that the election is being stolen because he's irresponsible and incompetent as a president.
And speaking of irresponsible, I am so sick of conservatives and Republicans giving Trump a slap on the wrist for what he's doing right now. I don't know if you saw it, and you can look it up if you want to, Jason, so you can see it for yourself. But Ben Shapiro commented, and for those who don't know, Ben Shapiro is
I saw that.
Okay, a right-wing commentator, where he's like, I am very displeased by, I'm not quoting, I'm just paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me. But like, I'm very displeased by what Trump has said about the integrity of the elections. It was deeply irresponsible of him to do so. That was it? Why aren't you pissed? If you had a Democrat doing this, if Joe Biden said the exact same thing, you would be screaming for Armageddon.
He went on a 10-minute rant against that Cardi B song because he felt it was too dirty, like he's married to Al Gore.
I'm so sick of this Republican hypocrisy bullshit. I'm so done with it. I'm so done with people spreading conspiracy theories left and right instead of just taking 30 seconds to just look up the facts. And this is scary because when you have a president who's literally saying that the half of America is trying to overthrow the government, they're going to act. We said this before. I've said it on multiple episodes now. Dan said it when we were talking about the social dilemma. There may be a civil war because of this type of crap.
Not super likely, but you certainly are going to continue to sow division and distrust and hatred among our political groups right now. Because they're never going to accept the results of this election. When and if Biden wins, as it looks like he's going to, there will be half the country that thinks it was stolen from them.
Well, and this is completely anecdotal, so I understand this. This is just kind of a fun little story that I saw. So on a group on Facebook that I'm a part of, one of the members said, hey, my friend just posted this. I don't know what to do with it. And basically, the friend of this person who posted said that Trump got the election stolen from him. And this person said, that's not true. They already legitimately called it for these states. And the person responded with, well, that's what your liberal media tells you. The true media has Trump winning those states. Now, again, that's just one anecdote of a crazy person, right? I understand that. But I think that is a real example of some kind of fear that's going on that's plaguing people with this quote unquote conspiracy with the media, where they can't trust facts at all. I know we were talking about this later or a little bit earlier, saying that when people are now distrusting all news sources for factual information, truth doesn't matter anymore. Truth is relative. And when truth becomes relative, that's it. Game over. You can't logic them out of that.
And once they believe the election commissions are in on this conspiracy, then it doesn't matter what you say.
Correct.
They're going to always believe that this is all fake news and that this election's illegitimate. Joe Biden's an illegitimate president. And it makes it harder in the future when we have situations like this, when we have close elections.
It makes it hard just to stay unified as a country. Like the idea of the loyal opposition is gone, right? It's long gone.
And it makes it easier for politicians to not do anything, to not work together to accomplish anything. If they know that their constituents don't want them to work with the criminals on the other side,
then why would they bother?
It's in their best interest to keep their job to just be obstructionist and not do anything. Because it looks like we are going to have still a Republican majority Senate. And if they can be obstructionist and never pass anything that comes through, then what's the Biden presidency going to get us?
And I think maybe that's a good segue into our very most depressing part of this whole thing, right? The Senate races. So maybe we look at some of the Senate races and see what's going on in them and figure out where the hell the Democrats went wrong, I guess. I don't even know.
Well, in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham defeated Jamie Harrison, unfortunately. Mr. Hold Me to My Word was able to lie to his constituents, lie to America, and not be held accountable for it. And the rotting turtle corpse, Mitch McConnell, easily beat Amy McGrath in Kentucky. And he will continue to be the leader of the Senate, most likely.
And we already talked about how these two guys were going to win, or they were predicted to win. Remember that?
Yeah.
I think what makes me angry is not that they won, but just their sheer margin of how much they won. Like, okay, fine, Mitch McConnell destroyed McGrath. It's Kentucky, I understand that, and McGrath really didn't put up that much of a fight once she won her primary. You can make an argument that Charles Booker was going to do better, but to be honest, I really don't see it. But man, like, Lindsey Graham destroyed in South Carolina. Like, Jamie Harrison didn't even stand a chance.
Despite that terrible debate.
Right. And Harrison destroyed Lindsey Graham in that debate. He embarrassed him, and they didn't care.
And speaking of being destroyed in a debate and no one caring, it looks like Purdue beat John Ossoff, who he is a crook, and he was called a crook.
Yep. On live TV.
And he had no response for that.
Nothing.
And instead backed out of the next debate because he knew he was being humiliated with facts, and he had no answer for it, and he's still going to retain his seat.
And then you also do have the seat for Kelly Loeffler, where it was a runoff, or it will be a runoff election,
which generally favors Republicans,
right?
Unfortunately.
So, I mean, great. She's probably going to retain her seat as well. But Joan, let's do that one.
Arizona looks like, as we kind of assumed, Mark Kelly.
It's like the one thing,
that.
Yeah, the one thing that we actually predicted to really go well, and exactly like how it was going to go well too. I'm so happy Mark Kelly won. Finally, we get some good news out of this outside of Biden. We're still trying to weigh on the Tom Tillis and Cal Cunningham one. I think Cunningham can't pull it out. We'll have to find out because we're still waiting on North Carolina's election results. But man, like that's another one. Like why? Like you keep.
That's the only
one
that has somewhat of an explanation with that sexting scandal.
Yeah, that was a weird one too.
Even though Tom Tillis is worthless, people do care if you're having, I don't know, electronic affairs.
Yeah.
Such an old person thing.
And what really shocked me, Joni Ernst.
Yeah, that one wasn't
even close.
Nope.
God.
Looks like one good thing, though, is that Peters is likely to win in Michigan. They're currently pretty much tied, but with the majority of the votes being counted there, being Democratic leaning.
He'll probably get most of those.
Yeah, that he's likely to win that seat. We saw the Trump tweet bemoaning James losing and saying how it's a travesty. They were stealing his election.
Or what was it? They were finding ballots all of a sudden in Michigan, right? Oh yeah. Wow, it looks like Michigan has now found the ballots necessary.
Do the voice.
I have no. It's a bad voice.
So
you have to do it because you have a bad voice.
Wow, it looks like Michigan has now found the ballots necessary to keep a wonderful young man, John James, out of the U.S. Senate. What a terrible thing is happening. Again, with this finding they're finding them.
Our president is saying they're just randomly finding ballots.
And they happen to match the signatures that we have on file for these registered voters. They're very good at faking these signatures. Many people have told me. Sad.
And I don't know if this is a surprise or not, but I was kind of sad that Steve Bullock lost in Montana. Like it also, again, like it wasn't even freaking close. There you go.
Gotta find the right tab.
So, and here is the weird thing about this too. For a while in Montana, Trump was winning, but then so was Steve Bullock. And it was confusing analysts like left and right. It's like, well, wait, sorry, people were voting for Trump, but then also voting for Steve Bullock. And then all of a sudden, nope. they just swung right for, what's his name? Oh, Daines, Steve Daines. Shifted right for Daines, and then he never looked back. So that was very sad.
How does Susan Collins still have a job?
I don't know.
What is wrong with people in Maine?
Is there even a chance? Like, so we're looking at, oh no, they called it for it, didn't they?
Yeah, it's already called.
Oh, well, that just hurt me. Never mind. Forget I said anything. I don't even know. What has she done?
If you're a Republican, how do you even like her? She constantly holds you hostage for her vote.
I just don't get it.
There's the old ball coach, Tommy Tuberville.
That's in the most southern thing
in
ever.
Alabama.
Oh boy.
Sorry for anyone living in Alabama. You already have my condolences.
Tuberville destroys Doug Jones. Of course he does, because it's Alabama.
You never know. It might be a situation where you need a senator to dissect a 4-3 base defense. Who else are you going to ask,
Throw in the nickel. I mean, what are you talking about?
One bright spot, looks like the race was called for Hickenlooper in Colorado.
Yeah, and that was another one that we predicted to go pretty well, and no real surprises there. Hickenlooper won by 10 points. So that's good. So we had a couple of wins, but even then it's just, man.
Probably not enough to retake. Well,
No.
not enough to retake.
I think as of right now, we're probably looking at like a 51-49 Republican rule in the Senate, which, great. Just fantastic. Even if we had a 50-50 split, that would at least be something we could work with. But nope, can't do that, can we? Maine.
And then how are we going to pass any of the good things, the actual good things for progressives that Joe Biden wants to do, like free community college or tech college, whatever, 2-year college tuition?
Well, look at like even electing justices, right? Nominating and electing justices.
Yeah.
That ain't happening anymore.
Yeah, I guarantee they're going to say, we won't.
No, because they don't care.
Yeah, because Breyer, I think he's going to retire because he's in his 80s. And they're going to say, well, no, we're not going to vote on your nomination, even though that's our job. And we rammed through the last one as fast as we could at the end of the Republican presidential term. But now we changed our minds. And because you were so mean to poor rapist Brett Kavanaugh that he only likes beer. I mean, come on, the poor guy. You were so mean to him, calling him a rapist because he raped that one lady once at a party. His day planner says it doesn't say rape on there. We checked his calendar. It didn't specifically say rape a girl. So that was evidence enough. Who cares that he lied about everything? And you were so mean to him that, we're not going to vote on anyone that you nominate for these 4 years. We're just going to wait until Biden's term is over and we'll see who gets elected next. And then, who cares if we only have 7 or 8 Supreme Court justices? That's fine.
Well, and if you look at this electoral map, it shows they don't care. Why would they care?
Yeah, no one's holding them responsible, accountable.
So why would they bother?
Disappointed in you, America. And I'm speaking directly to you now, America. You disappoint me. You make me embarrassed to be an American. Do better.
So based on our other episode of how the state of the election was, what are your thoughts on polling and the margins of error in these polls?
I don't know what to think about polling at this point. They're getting something wrong. As much as they said they corrected all of the issues that they had last time, that they might even be overestimating some of the things.
Overly conservative, just to be safe.
They're still way off. And is it that all of these weirdo conspiracy freaks that love Trump and the Republicans just refuse to talk to anybody when it comes to any surveys or anyone asking them about their preferences? Are they just that crazy?
Well,
the people that shoot at the census people when they come to their house?
But I wouldn't see them. I can't see like your typical Biden voter loving to like talk to a pollster. So the idea of like the shy Trump voter just really isn't a thing. So where is this coming from? And I really don't know. But like when you look at places like in Ohio, now technically 538 and other state polls, well, 538 was based on those state polls, or 538's model is based on those state polls. Had Trump winning that, I think it was like by 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, it was close.
Yeah, it was close.
Yeah.
It was pretty, and same thing with Iowa too. Like it had Trump leading by like 1 or 2 points, and then Biden gets destroyed.
Yeah, Florida, they had it for Biden.
Well, and
pretty comfortably, like 3 points.
Yeah, about 3 points. It was about a 6-point swing. In Florida.
Wisconsin's much closer. They had him up by like 7 points in Wisconsin. It's going to come down to less than 1%.
Yeah, and I think in the other episode, I even said like, yeah, we'll kind of give it around 7 to 9 points. And then I think my thing was give a 3% for polling error. You probably have Biden winning about 4 or 5 points. And even that was wrong.
By a lot.
So I don't know. I really don't know. And a lot of these Senate races were just completely off. You had Susan Collins expected to get her butt kicked. That didn't happen. I don't know what to do. I'm not for, and we also need to look at the idea of how to use polls and statistics correctly as well. I'm not going to be one of those people who says, let's throw Nate Silver into the sun, because I don't think that's the correct takeaway here. What my concern is, though, there has to be some kind of predictive ability or use out of these state polls. Otherwise, why do we have them?
I don't see what good it does. You could do just as well if you know how a state leans, and just going by that, you're better off than looking at these polls.
Right.
Because he would have always said, well, Texas, no way that's going blue. Florida, that's probably going to be Republican. He would have been more correct than the polling was. I don't understand it. And the worst part of it is, this is what the Trump people were saying all along. Oh, all these polls are wrong. Oh, he's going to win all these states. They are right in this instance more than they are wrong. He's still going to lose the election, more than likely. But, man, that does not feel good.
No, not at all.
And Wisconsin. Shame on you, Wisconsin.
I know. Well, and then when you have places like Texas, where they're talking about, well, Biden has a 1-point lead in Texas. Okay. I still kind of believe if Texas actually went blue for anything at this point, hell would freeze over. But yeah, exactly with Wisconsin, I don't even see that as being as close as what it was supposed to be. And the other thing is, we need to understand here why it was as close as what it was. I think I already said this, but Trump got so much more turnout than what he was expected to get. And that's the issue. I think in Wisconsin, at least, Trump got about 1.4 million votes.
1.6.
In 2016.
Oh, okay. Here.
And then, you just said it. But now he has 200,000 more votes in Wisconsin than he did in 2016. Where did those 200,000 people come from? Because more people voted for Biden than in 2016, too.
I don't understand how anyone can be excited to vote for Donald Trump. I get the rich people. They just want to keep their money. They don't want taxes. And the people who think they're going to be rich living in trailer parks, voting against their best interest because Fox News told them to. I get that. But for all the rest of us, everybody in the middle, you're going to be better off financially under a Democratic president. Trump did not permanently lower the tax rate on the middle class. It was a temporary tax cut while pushing much larger, permanent, much more broad tax cuts for corporations and for the super wealthy.
So while we should still be cautious about condemning the polls right now, because we're still technically early, we should wait until everything is counted. That's the idea, right? Wait until every vote is counted, and then we'll have to relook at the polls and see what's going on. Obviously, there was a big issue with underestimating Trump's overall turnout, even though a lot of the actual results may not be changed that drastically, but we still have something to look at here for future use. I'm kind of curious to see what 538 and Real Clear Politics has to say about this.
Nate Silver's head on a spike. Burn 5e the Fox.
No, not 5e. So my last real question for you, Jason, is strategy. We kind of saw the whole gambit of strategy between Trump and Biden, where you saw Biden literally not doing anything in person. Well, mostly not anything in person. Not doing any in-person canvassing in swing states where they needed it most because of the pandemic. So for obvious reasons, but it was a strategic choice he made. Where you had Trump going to tons of super spreader events, calling things hoaxes, attacking Fauci, to going on whatever crazy drunk rant that he would go on. What do you think were the implications of those things through this election?
I think this indicates, at least for some voters, probably ones that aren't too political, that aren't too consumed by the issues and policies of the candidates, that having a populist with a big personality is effective. I think that's where a lot of the Trump votes come from, are people that just watch him on TV and like his character that he's playing.
Which is horrifying, by the way.
Yes. those are the people that were like, I don't like Joe Biden, I like Bernie Sanders, but now that it's not Bernie Sanders, now I like Donald Trump. You can't have that stance and care at all about policy. Policy cannot matter to you if those were the two people that you liked. They're so completely opposite, and Trump is basically, he campaigned as he was campaigning against Bernie Sanders, even though he wasn't the option.
And you can see that it worked. Like, I mean, not to the point where like he won, but I think it did a lot of damage.
But to me, if you're a person that says, well, I like Bernie and I like Trump, you don't care at all about what they're going to do when they're president. It's a popularity contest. It's a reality show, so to speak. And having that character as your candidate is effective. I hope it never happens again, but I don't see how you cannot at least see that as a effective strategy.
So
that's why man, Tucker Carl, it scares
Right.
the shit out of me. But
now this may be a question actually more directed at me. I'm going to ask it to you in case you have something to say about it. Do you think Biden's strategy of not doing anything in person hindered him at all?
I don't think so, because again, it let Trump go. He still was using that. He's hiding in his basement, even while they were debating in the same room. He was always going to use that. I don't think it matters, because people that care about that weren't going to vote for Joe Biden anyway. He isn't that big bombastic personality. And I could be like, oh, and this is, people said like, oh, Hillary lost Wisconsin last time because she never came here. Really? That's going to change your mind on all of their policies that are completely different just because she didn't come visit your state?
I mean, I think this is a good way to look at it. I'm going to look at it from a pure organizing perspective. So I helped organize here in Wisconsin, especially in the Milwaukee area. And it was my organization specifically decided to not do any in-person canvassing. No door-to-door stuff, no literature drops, which are one of some of the best ways you can help out your campaigns. So we didn't do any of that for Joe Biden. However, try to tell anyone running for local election or local assembly seats that they can't do that, and they're going to give you the big middle finger. And they did. So you had all these Democrats who were predicted to do really well because they were actually going door to door and doing lots of canvassing. And they were doing it safely as much as they could because, I mean, I don't know, I still wouldn't recommend doing it anyway. But anyway, so you had all these Democratic candidates doing all this stuff that was supposed to win them the election, even though Joe Biden's campaign wasn't going to do it. That did squat for them. Almost all of the Democrats in Wisconsin that were supposed to win lost, and lost by a lot. So I think that shows that this door-to-door stuff or doing anything in person did nothing for him. It didn't hinder him at all because I think, like you said, the people who were already going to dislike Biden already had their reasons. The fact that they didn't have someone come knocking on their door wouldn't have changed that. And that also goes back to the idea that, I think, what was it, like 2 weeks before the election, 95% of people or voters were already set on who they were going to vote for. So I'll put that argument to rest. I don't think anything like that happened, or I don't think anything like that hindered Joe Biden in any way. So if someone tries to tell you about, well, it's because Joe Biden was so afraid he didn't go anywhere, that's why it was so close, it's bullshit. Sorry. Do you think that the Hunter Biden story had any impact?
That's one of the things that I'd like to see some actual numbers on. I don't think so, just because I'm pretty sure the only people that really were into that story were the hardcore Trump people in the first place. I didn't see anybody outside of that, well, that aren't already rabid Trump voters really pushing that story or talking about it. Or
I agree. I don't think it was affecting people who weren't already Trump voters or people who already hated or who didn't already hate Biden. My concern was when you see these hardcore crazy Trumpers posting this stuff constantly on like Facebook and social media, I am kind of curious if you inundate someone that much with them. And we talked about this again in the social media episode, when you're just pushed over and over again on a specific story, after a while, it becomes your reality. So I'm kind of curious for someone who isn't that involved in politics, just sees this story over and over again and they don't know how to refute it. And I've seen that before, where someone's like, I don't think that's true. And then the crazy Trumper will go absolutely insane and say a bunch of crazy stuff, but the person wouldn't know how to refute it. So like, well, maybe you're right. Maybe that would scare a lot of people. I don't know. which was the whole point of the story.
I think that fuels the Trump as a character motif, that
I'd agree with that.
he's the guy that's going to push these wild conspiracies, and people like that kind of thing. And that's why they like Trump. They want 4 more years of insanity.
Yep. So what do you think some of the key takeaways are while we're finishing this up? Like, while we're looking forward, and we won't go too much into this because I think we should do like a what's next episode, but just for like, what do you think we should move on to as a country while looking at this election right now?
Well, what I would like to see happen is for politics to move to more policy, less personality, but this is not going to do it.
I was going to say, that's really great, but what do you think is actually going to happen?
I think it's going to be all about personality. I think that's what you're going to have coming up in this next, 2 years from now when we do the midterm election. It's going to be everybody trying to out crazy everybody else. It's going to be wrestling. Our elections are going to turn into professional wrestling. That's what I think is going to happen. Because what else explains the popularity of Donald Trump? He's been one of the worst presidents in history. He completely botched the only thing that mattered in his first term, which was COVID. He did worse than any other world leader. I just got a phone call in the middle of recording this telling me that my dad, who has dementia and is in a home, was possibly exposed by a nurse that works there. And they've had multiple outbreaks before. I have to worry about this every day. And it's because we don't have the leadership we need, but yet people still vote for this guy. What else, other than the fact that he is a crazy cartoon character, are they voting for? I don't get it.
Well, and I think that kind of goes
dangerous.
I mean, you're right. And I would even expand that to not just why did they vote for him, but why did they vote for them? Like, why are Republicans winning right now, right? So, okay. I think personally, my key takeaway of this whole thing is you need to understand that even if Joe Biden wins, which he looks like he probably will, this isn't over. Imagine like where any like cool like fantasy movie or adventure movie you may be watching where there's like this really cool fight at the main evil villain and the hero slays the villain at the end and like throws him to like a pool of lava or something like that. And then the hero walks away, but then the camera pans over back to the pool of lava and like a hand jumps out at the end. That's what this is. Trump isn't going away. He will stay here and he will come back. Maybe not necessarily as a presidential candidate, although who freaking knows?
I think he's too old, luckily. For that.
Right. But his damage is lasting. His supporters are here. And Republicans are going to see that acting more like Trump will make them popular. So they're going to do it. If we had this big rebuke on Trump, this wouldn't have happened. But unfortunately, that's not what we see here. So please take away the fact that if Joe Biden wins, this isn't over. We can take a week to celebrate as much as we can, and then we need to get back to work. We need to fight for tooth and nail for every single inch because these guys are going to be monstrous in the next 4 years. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other life chaos has to offer.
All the other life chaos has to offer.
And while we're at, can we just...
Stop screwing up. I don't want to edit.
I know, I'm sorry.
You made up all of these stories about, what words mean and said that everything else in his yearbook was some other alternate. I'm going to cut this out. This is going nowhere.
Just the realization.